Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 372, Lectures on Witchcraft, 147 pages, so this is intermediate in length, and it's oratorical. That is, this is a series of lectures given by Charles Upham in the mid-19th century, and they've been transcribed, and they're on the topic, of course, of persecution in Salem. Now, link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books, blogs. I've got a lot more works lately that are on Salem, the burning times, witchcraft in general, like the history of it. And Upham's work is fairly well known. In fact, the short work Cotton Mather and Witchcraft that I previously edited is effectively an attempt to refute part of one of these lectures, which dwells in part on Cotton Mather and Increase Mather, his father, and his culpability with regards to the Salem witch trials. Now, what this contains is, there's a lot of primary material here, so quotations from the actual trial proceedings. It mentions a plethora of individuals and sort of the trials that they went through, and also the spiritual, superstitious basis upon which those trials commenced. It does get into the concept of public corruption by people, by the minister and the sheriff of Salem and the governor at one point, among others. And the idea of property dispute is touched upon, although it's not really fleshed out here. That as a motive is generally looked at more through a modern lens, but it was known that there was property stuff going on then. For instance, I can't remember, Proctor, I believe it was, refused to say, yes, indeed, I'm a witch, so that they couldn't burn him at the stake. That's why they pressed him to death with rocks. What this did, because there was no confession, is prevent his property from going to the town to disperse. It kept it in his family. So for his family, he suffered an even more cruel death than burning to death. At least then, at some point, your nerves and the skin shut down and you can't really feel the fire around you anymore. When you're getting crushed to death, that must have sucked. It apparently took several hours. It's a lot longer than getting pilloried. Anyway, it's a good work, although technically it's multiple sections. It also speaks, towards the end especially, it waxes a little bit theatrical, and Upham goes into a multi-page diatribe about, well, thank goodness our Christianity now has more wisdom than it did then. We've forsaken some of the persecution and superstition. We're more merciful. We understand reason now and the rights of man and, post-enlightenment sort of Christian stuff. And thank goodness our culture is so much more enlightened in the way that it treats the accused and relies on evidence in trial and juries and stuff like that. Now, I pointed out, actually, on this topic, it is rather interesting that Upham and other more optimistic Christians and even secular historians and stuff, especially in the 19th century, had that very optimistic appraisal of the state of their religion and of culture in general in the Western world, whether it be Europe or the United States, some of the other diaspora. Because if we look around today, we have the same witch trial persecution literally right now. We have plenty of superstition, persecution, lack of evidence, and emotional diatribe, propaganda, in the war on disinfo, the war on COVID, the war on terror, the war on drugs, basically every war declared that isn't actually a war, and sometimes in those as well. Evidence be damned. It's the same persecution, it's the same brutal methodology, except these days, instead of burning humans, they've reverted to burning books more often, and burning bank accounts, of course. Getting, though, back on the topic of the book, I'm sorry, I have to mention that every time the concept of persecution and the burning times and ignorant superstition come up. That part is the bulk of this, talking about the actual, not just the testimony, but the evidentiary basis. That's the most interesting part of these lectures. So talking about people in their confessions, they were saying, oh, a black dog was following me around, and this woman was, I saw her dancing with the devil, and there were imps going in and out of her house, and this dude over here, he told me that I'd be damned, and then my cows died. And it's very, very interesting to see all of the different, dozens of different accounts on these trials in Salem. Of course, a very bloody and dark period in world history. So yes, I highly recommend it. It is historical. It does have that slightly theatrical, typically mid-19th century bent to it with regards to the positive religion angle. We're improving our religion. We don't burn witches anymore. And we're still doing leechcraft and stuff, but we're not killing people as much anymore, unless they're, you know, different skin colors, of course. They came from the wrong continent, speak the wrong language. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. There are a lot of other witchcraft entries, mostly under the academic header, although there are some others scattered around the books blogs there as well. That's about all. Peace out.